Hello everyone watching and welcome to episode 2 Jurassic Park As I See It series. As the title implies, we're ready to jump into the sequel, The Lost World Jurassic Park. And this is a film that I actually have a big nostalgic attachment to. Alright, so the original Jurassic Park is a cinematic masterpiece that's extraordinarily significant. But The Lost World, it's in the eyes of the beholder. It's not technically on the level of the original one, but it's one of the finer sequels in this entire series. So here's a little honest truth about this film. It gets a little choppy, so to say, near the end of it, but it's still enjoyable, and I'll go ahead and explain my reasons why I enjoy this film, and what exactly I don't. So before I go ahead and immerse myself in the actual movie, I want to go ahead and talk about some of the childhood attachments that basically I have to this film. And I gotta say, one of the key things that was crucial for me as a kid is the toy line for this film. And this goes beyond the dinosaurs even. The ground tracker made playing in dark so much fun. Even better, a full trailer playset was released, which I never got to own, unfortunately. But on a positive note, I had a plethora of dinosaurs from this movie. I mean, I could literally create my own storyline each day for this movie, my own little extension of the movie. There even was a Spinosaurus action figure for the movie. Granted, it wasn't that cool of a design, it still was pretty cool. I remember going to the actual movie and there was a balloon Spinosaurus at the entry of the actual movie. So owning this figure and seeing that made me believe we're gonna see the Spinosaurus. Turns out, nope, he's not in the movie. After the release of the original Jurassic Park, there was plenty of pressure. Believe it, there definitely was. A lot of pressure to get that next movie. But before that, we would need a follow-up novel. After much refusal by Michael Crichton, things would gradually change after the film adaptation would smash the box offices.
I had not ever done a sequel before and would always say, there won't be one. But then as time went on, they would say, well, this would be a good sequel, and here's another idea for a sequel. And actually, I began to feel as though, living in this town of sequels, where, there's just sequel. I've never done a sequel. And it's kind of a difficult thing to do, I would think.
The trepidation is...
With Steven Spielberg and company begging and pleading for new material. However, the amusing part is, a lot of this would be changed from the novel to the actual film. Now, this wasn't anything exactly new. I mean, the original Jurassic Park movie wasn't exactly like the novel. In this case right here, I do think it was kind of pointless to push Crichton to make a second book, because really nothing about the book and the actual movie really feels similar at all. I mean, they're pretty drastically different. So just a little heads up, like the previous video, this isn't going to be a comparison between the novel and the actual film. However, though, I will reference a few key points. It is interesting to know this was one of Crichton's only sequels that he ever wrote. Lost World Jurassic Park would release in '97 to mixed to positive reviews. But to this day, it actually has a pretty decent fan following, and some would consider this to be one of the better sequels when the series has been hit by some amazing days and some bumpy, rocky road days along the way. So let's get in and go ahead and separate the good from the bad in this film. The movie begins 4 years after the events of the original film, where we meet a family that has discovered an island, unaware of the fact that this island contains dinosaurs roaming freely. So this is one of the big factors that separates Isla Nubla versus Isla Sorna, which we're introduced to in this film. As to where we're introduced to Isla Nubla, we see the dinosaurs in containment in a dino theme park. But here, the idea of humans arriving with no knowledge, this means anything goes, and this is proven when the young girl wanders off and encounters a hungry pack of compies. Which leads to a mother screaming in terror as her daughter is attacked off screen, and then we cut away to Dr. Ian Malcolm yawning, which is kind of comically timed, honestly. And this is just one of the things about this film, is it features a lot more comedic relief, which becomes increasingly apparent as we get near the end of this film. A few examples.
I don't think so.
Don't forget somebody actually called animal control on the T-Rex. Now for the record, I'm not saying this is bad in my opinion. There's other aspects in this film which I'm more critical of, and this isn't exactly one of them. We meet John Hammond, who seems like a character that's kind of learned his lesson. And this is where we're given details on Site B, which essentially the dinosaurs are cloned and nursed before they're transferred over to Site A. Eventually, nature has a big intervention. The island is struck by Hurricane Clarissa. Life finds a way, the island is entirely roamed by dinosaurs, free of any interference of mankind. All until that yacht manages to stop on the island, creating the first dino-human contact in years on Isla Sorna. So you gotta ask now, what happened to Site A? Basically, how is InGen in Jurassic Park doing? Well, Jurassic Park and InGen are on hard times, on the verge of bankruptcy. Our boy Ian Malcolm has signed an NDA, however he still tells his truthful side of the story after a misinformation campaign by InGen, which has been sold to the public with lies and misinformation, which leads to Ian Malcolm looking like a nutcase with ruined credibility. And this is where we also find out that Peter Lidwell, John Hammond's nephew, is now the InGen CEO. So let's talk about Peter Lidwell as the main antagonist of this film. Now on paper, Peter isn't exactly as interesting of a CEO as John Hammond, who was an individual looking to break new ground and bring something innovative to the public for their experience. Deep down, John knew his idea was flawed by design. Peter Lidwell, on the other hand, he's essentially looking to protect InGen by any means necessary and max profits. So much to the point to where he's seen disregarding human emotions. Look at scenes like this. Peter is more obsessed with the fact that the buck T-Rex has been captured by Roland, whose goal was to capture it in the first place. He doesn't seem to understand Roland's problem.
Got your trophy! Puck only!
Or the fact that AJ has been lost, and so many others. Lidwell is so driven by business, he's basically disregarding any life lost it's taken to get to this point. So in a nutshell, he's an easy antagonist to write into this film, to the point where you actually anticipate Lidwell getting what he deserves. And when he does, it's an absolute relief. We're introduced to a handful of brand new characters in this film which make lone appearances never to be followed up in future installments, such as Dr. Sarah Harding, which serves as Ian's girlfriend, intelligent girlfriend I should say, but for the most part she's anything but intelligent in this film. Examples being she doesn't think to remove her jacket with the baby T-Rex's blood on it, and it only draws the T-Rexes to investigate. The scent leads to the death of several people on the island. I felt this moment could have been better written into the film. Let's just go ahead and say Roland had found her discarded jacket, grabs it and hides it in a tent with the intent to lure the buck after discovering it was the baby's blood on the jacket. After all, this was his big trophy he was after. And then we have Nick Van Owen, who's a character that I actually enjoy, even if he's a one-off. One of his moments that kind of cracked me up is the moment where I don't know if he's exactly being serious or just joking around with Sarah. We see him spit in her hand when she mentions she needs something pliable.
Spit. Your gum.
As per tradition, there's always usually a child actor in the Jurassic Park series. This one is no exception. We meet Ian Malcolm's daughter, by the name of Kelly, who really doesn't add anything to the plot in this film other than sneaking on board.
Who started a fire?
I just wanted to make dinner.
And yeah, one could go ahead and say there is that moment where she has a chance to go ahead and bond with her father, but it feels like it's kind of lost between everything going on in this film. The reason why I say she doesn't add anything to the film is because of the fact there's nothing that feels essential to the actual storyline or the arc of the film. Look at it this way. Tim and Lex had basically something they tied into with Dr. Grant and Ellie Sattler. Dr. Grant's big thing was he didn't want kids, he wanted nothing to do with kids. But after having a moment to basically take care of and look after Lex and Tim, that kind of changed her perspective. So there's nothing that Kelly really bridges together in this film. She's most remembered for the infamous gymnastics scene, which I don't exactly hate, but I can see how some others have some disdain towards it. With all that said though, there is something I want to say to defend her character. She is actually one of the characters that mentions something completely reasonable that nobody actually speaks of during the moment, and that's the fact that baby T-Rex will draw other dinosaurs' attention, which is something completely relevant in this film. So now there's the next point of this we gotta get into, and that's the dinosaurs, and there's a pretty good roster of dinosaurs in this film if you're looking for that. When it comes to the Lost World Jurassic Park, this film opts to reuse some of the main antagonists from the original, but with a few changes. The raptors kind of take the back seat, but aren't worked into the plot until maybe the final 20 minutes of the film, which is actually probably one of my favorite moments in the film due to the fact it kind of feels like a roller coaster. You know it's going to pop up, and when it happens, I appreciate it along the way, and the design of the striped raptors in this film. I think it's one of my favorite next to the original. Outside that, we get introduced to a wider variety of dinosaurs. Some brand new ones join the Jurassic Park roster. A couple of the new notable dinosaurs I'm going to go ahead and mention in this film would be Mamenchisaurus and Pachycephalosaurus. But now it's time to talk about the actual main antagonist, or antagonists. So this is the last film where we'll simply use the Rex as the sole main antagonist. The next movie will give the spotlight to the Spinosaurus. The following World films? We'll give the spotlight to other carnivores as well. But the T-Rex will serve as more of an anti-hero, less feared, more cheered. The entire movie gives a grand build-up for the T-Rexes, the buck and doe, from the moment we see the footprint. You know it's going to be in the film judging by the marketing, but it plays out so well as you keep seeing a variety of dinosaurs, including the baby T-Rex. Once the baby T-Rex becomes missing, the buck and doe become enraged, and it's on. Something big is wandering through the jungle together. Then the moment hits, the two of them, peering through the windows, and as a viewer this is unnerving. This is the last time the T-Rex felt like a total threat. Adding 3 to this film made things a bit different versus the debut appearance in Jurassic Park. The great part about this scene is you're looking at it like, oh, this is a close call moment. No, it's not. Both the Rexes return after returning the baby to the lair and go full rampage mode on the trailer, attempting to not only pry open the trailer, but push it off the cliff. These T-Rexes are so petty, to the point that when they see Eddie attempting to save everyone, RIP Eddie, he's a real one, both of them pry open his Mercedes like a soda can, as if they're thinking, hell no, you ain't saving them. This isn't even about eating everybody, it's just about pushing them off the cliff. A moment of remembrance for Eddie. He stayed in his car attempting to fight the odds and save everyone. Every moment we get with the T-Rex on screen hits different than the original one. I believe it was a great call bringing in 2 adult T-Rexes and a baby in, just to shake things up a tad, so that way this film doesn't feel like it's attempting to clone the success and presentation of the original one. Once again, this film uses a mix of animatronics and CGI, though this film is heavier on the CGI than the original one, as 4 years have gone by in advanced Hollywood. It actually holds up pretty well, but a lot of our key scenes are shot in the dark, as to where the original one kind of had that balance between day and night. So any possible imperfections this film may have might be masked in the darkness. But it's solidly done, and I've never exactly been critical of the dino visuals in this film. So now, this film it is a fun follow, but I'll admittedly say after the raptor attack scene, it does get pretty spotty. I'd like to place emphasis on the cargo ship at the end of the film, which is seen carrying the buck T-Rex, crashing with a completely dead crew. There's never any real context on what exactly kills the people. However, there's a few things to note. The film tries to imply that the buck T-Rex may have had something to do with this, but it's kind of hard to follow with what they want to paint for us. It's kind of hard to believe that T-Rex would have gotten into all these tight spaces and killed everyone. In fact, there's one guy left with just his hand on the button. The idea is the T-Rex would have killed everybody, but then after that returned back to the cargo hold. So what this film is implying, it feels like a stretch and doesn't make a lot of sense. Regardless of who killed the crew, this leads towards the classic rampage scene in San Diego, which gives us that memorable Godzilla quote. In so much chaos leading up to the ending, planting in that moment, who will shoot first? The lethal or the non-lethal? Lost World Jurassic Park isn't a perfect film by any means. In fact, it's imperfect. But I think it's a very tolerable sequel, honestly, in comparison to most of what we've been given in recent years. It makes its way into my heart, probably because of nostalgia, and that's probably just the nostalgia speaking. Like I said earlier in this video, the opinion is in the eyes of the beholder. Some people might have their take that might not like this film, but others, though, I can see what there is to like in this film. Yes, it has a few glaring plot holes, but it makes up for being a fun popcorn flick with tons of 90s nostalgia, a wonderful OST brought to us by John Williams. This would be the last film he was part of in the Jurassic Park series, though every film forward would draw heavy inspiration from his work. Lost World Jurassic Park is a film where I do believe there's so much to be gained from, and it has its own memorable moments that make this movie a little tough to follow up. I'll elaborate on that more as the series continues, because 3 years later we'll get Jurassic Park 3. And this movie is where we get something that Jurassic Park series would make sure to highlight every movie beyond. What is it it's going to place heavy emphasis on? Well, find out in the next video, and we talk about Jurassic Park 3 as I see it. See you later.